Simone, Trump said, leave it up to the states. This is what that looks like. A Civil War era law now back into effect. How poorly thought out was this position he put out yesterday, especially now?
Well, I will just say this. I think that Donald Trump is doing and saying whatever he thinks can get him elected. He has no principle. There is no ground for him to stand on because the ground shifts and moves according to what he thinks will get him what he wants. In the statement that he put out yesterday, in the video and whatnot, he talked about you have to understand what's on people's hearts, but it's about winning. Essentially, he said it's about winning. That's what he's focused on.
But how is this a winning strategy?
This is not a winning strategy here. This is insane. Women in Arizona right now there's a 14-day stay on this decision, but in 14 days, you can't get an abortion if you need one in Arizona. The video that the Biden campaign put out this week featured Amanda Zurowski. Amanda Zurowski had a miscarriage. And because she was having a miscarriage, and I'm sorry to be graphic here, but all the things did not pass, she needed an abortion. In Texas,
otherwise,
she could not.
It's rotting in your body.
And that poison rotted in Amanda Zurowski's body to the point where now she and her husband, she almost died from sepsis twice. And now she and her husband may not be able to have children again. That is not only the reality of Amanda Zurowski or women in Texas. That is the reality of women all across the South. And it will be the reality of women all across America if Donald Trump is reelected president.
But, Simone, I close my eyes and I think Donald Trump makes this argument, and all sorts of people do. They say, leave it to the states, right? Those small government people that say, let the states decide.
As a black woman, I'm very concerned about this let the states decide language.
Let the states decide. But is this what the state of Arizona wants? A law that was put in place at a time when slavery was still legal.
Before Arizona was a state and at a time when women could not vote, when women were essentially property.
Okay, and is that what the people in Arizona want today?
Well, you know what? The people in Arizona can make their voices heard at the ballot box. 2 of the 4 justices that voted to uphold this abortion ban, they are on the ballot for re-election. In Arizona, Supreme Court justices are appointed by the governor, and then after a couple years, they are then elected. I suggest that the people of Arizona, when they go out to check their ballot box, they not only check the top of the ticket and down ballot for senators and Congress folks and their state legislative folks, but they look at that ballot amendment that will likely be on the ballot in Arizona to protect abortion rights, and also take a look at those Supreme Court justices, because your vote can make a difference.
Reed, Trump is acting like he doesn't want to get involved and let's let the states decide, but none of this would be happening if he did not set the stage for Roe to be overturned. He did that.
Right. Well, let the states decide is what Dobbs is, right? That's the Dobbs decision, is to let states decide. And we've seen how many states have decided. Let me just say, for so many of, if we have erstwhile Republicans like myself watching out there, remember, this is the thing that we used to hate. Unelected judges, so to speak, appointed judges legislating from the bench. Right? We used to hate that. We used to hate the idea of the long arm of government coming into our homes and telling us what we could and couldn't do. And then we should just say this for history's sake. It's the anniversary of Robert E. Lee surrendering to General Ulysses S. Grant, right? This law was passed before that event took place. Think about that. Think about how long ago this was. So this isn't even originalist. This is like pre-originalist. This is like Big Bang legal theory at this point.
Allie, did down-ballot Republicans want abortion to be this high profile of an issue?
No. And when Reed makes the point about what Republicans are saying right now, if Republicans liked this, they would be talking about it. Instead, in Congress today, I heard a lot of Republicans in frontline districts, for example, like Congressman Juan Ciscomani, saying that this was not a good ruling and that it was in some ways dangerous for women and that he preferred the 15-week ban. For a lot of these lawmakers, this is a problem for them, especially in a swing state like Arizona. We all know lawmakers. If they liked it, they'd be talking about it aggressively. They don't. They're trying to put distance between themselves and this. I also think, as someone who covered Trump back in 2015 and 16, I was there when he said that women should be punished for seeking abortion care. He then had to walk that back. But I think what Simone is saying is right. For Trump, abortion as an issue has never been a political motivator for him. It's not something that he himself seems to have any deeply held values on, unlike, for example, the person who was his running mate in 2016 and 2020, Mike Pence. Instead, for Trump, abortion is a means to a political end and a political victory. It's why we're watching his campaign team put out the statements that they are, saying this is a state's issue. Here's the thing about making it a state's issue. When you have a patchwork of rules across the country, you're watching the states where abortion is accessible. I'm thinking states like Colorado, for example, where you're seeing an influx of people traveling into the state trying to seek care. It's why you're going to end up seeing later term abortions, which are the thing that Republicans are now trying to attack Democrats for. Later term abortions, if you're talking about up until, as Republicans like to say, the moment of birth, that doesn't happen. Late term abortions are about 1% of abortions that you have, and those are largely done in the case of the life of the mother being in danger or fetal inviability. That's not the question here. When you have the patchwork, you're going to see later term abortions because people have to travel further. There are more barriers to their care. It sort of gets towards the reality that Republicans are saying they don't want. And again, as a political issue, women can vote now, and we've seen what they do with that.
But Reed, this argument that this isn't Trump's true views, it's just about political victory and political strategy, how is this a political victory beyond the primaries? The majority of the country is vehemently opposed to this.
Well, and look, I think this is a really important point, Stephanie, and the one that Allie just made, too, is that this is where Trump is stuck between a rock and a hard place on this issue, which is he tried to weasel out. And believe me, yesterday was just weasel words, trying to figure out something to say that was going to appease enough of his evangelical base. But now you've got Carrie Lake, right? Not exactly a moderate, saying, you know, she's against this ruling in Arizona. So you know what Ruben Gallego's campaign is going to do? They're going to have her saying we should go by the 1864 law. No, we shouldn't. And now Republicans are flip-floppers on abortion. And you know who stays home when that happens? Christian evangelicals, right? This is their issue. It's all they care about. It's how they see the rest of the world on the way to their weird dominionism. And so what I would say is this, is that for Trump, he has been trying to get out of this thing for weeks, months now. But again, how many more videos do we have to have of him saying, I killed Roe, I killed Roe, I killed Roe, I killed Roe? And now here you have it, right? We're literally back to the Civil War.
Simone, this is the state of Arizona. How much does this issue pull from the focus, which is immigration, immigration, immigration?
Look, I think for any of the border states, and now not even just the border states, if you live in Chicago, Denver, New York, Washington, D.C., places across the country, immigration, I think, is still top of mind, particularly what is happening at the border. But I think this is just as equally as important. When you poll folks, poll after poll, you sit in focus groups, you hear people reacting to this kind of news, whether we're talking about the Alabama IVF ruling or this ruling coming out of Arizona. People are concerned. They're concerned about their rights and their freedoms and what this means for them practically. We talk often about the exceptions. You heard Donald Trump really lean in on the exceptions the other day. And I want to pause and say Joe Biden has been very clear on this issue. Joe Biden is going to protect a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And he has said if a Congress sends him a bill to codify Roe into law, he will do that. The only way that is happening if you reelect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, if Democrats hold the Senate, okay, and Democrats got to take the House. So there's a down ballot strategy to protect reproductive freedom across the country. But to be very clear, these exceptions for life of a mother, health of a mother,
they're really vague, though. But this is it. They're really
exactly
vague.
They're very vague. And who decides? Who decides that the exception matters? Is it the doctor? Because for Amanda Zurawski, the doctor wasn't enough. For Kate Cox, the doctors weren't enough. The doctors said these women needed abortions, and they could not get them because the state said they could not.
My goodness. I want to go back to talking about Carrie Lake, obviously Republican there. She is now saying that she opposes this ruling. But guess what? We're just going to turn to the tape because I want to share what she said exactly 2 years ago about this very law. Watch this.
Obviously, I think Roe v. Wade should be overturned. And I think the Supreme Court, I have a good feeling that they're going to do the right thing this time. And again, I'll echo what Steve just said. We have a great law on the books right now. If that happens, we will be a state where we will not be taking the lives of our unborn anymore.
Allie, I'm not voicing an opinion here. Why would voters take either Carrie Lake or Donald Trump at their current word on an abortion a life or death issue when they've got a track record of changing their stance?
And look, certainly tagging Republicans as flip-floppers on this is going to be a central strategy. I think that Reid is right when you forecast that that's something that Ruben Gallego is going to be doing in this Senate race. And of course, it's something that the Biden campaign has already proven it's going to continue to tag Donald Trump with. Just the fact that they have him on tape being able to take credit for overturning Roe allows them to do several ads of what they already did with Amanda's ad this morning, showing women who have been negatively impacted by abortion restrictions and then tying it directly to Donald Trump in his own words. The question, though, is better asked when you think about what you said, which is it immigration or is it abortion that voters are deciding on in Arizona or across the country? And that's when this becomes an issue that it's too early to tell if it's going to be the decider. That being said, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, angry women who are full of rage tend to channel that into something. We have seen it in red states across the country like Kentucky and Ohio. And I do think that if that's the track record that we're seeing, it's a limited set of data that we're talking about, but it is one that is being consistently borne out in the post-Roe era.
Let's take a deep breath on this one. Ready? Jared Kushner's multi-billion dollar, he had no experience investing a single dollar until after Trump left office. But Jared Kushner's multi-billion dollar investment firm could be facing serious conflicts of interest if his father-in-law retakes the White House. The New York Times reports that 99% of the money placed with him by investors has come from foreign sources. That includes Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates, all of whom he worked directly with during his time in the Trump White House. My friend Tim O'Brien joins me. He's a senior executive editor at Bloomberg Opinion and, of course, a Trump biographer. He's also one of the only people who has actually seen Donald Trump's tax returns. Plus, he wrote the book, Trump Nation, The Art of Being the Donald. Tim, Jared Kushner, he now says he is confident that if Donald Trump is reelected, all decisions his father-in-law made would be based on what is best for the country and not family business interests. Is he laughing at us saying that? Let's start with the beginning of the Trump administration, when his sister went to Asia and showed an org chart with her brother's face on it and the White House as she was pitching real estate business and why you should move to the U.S. because you could get a visa here. Or the end of the Trump administration, while Trump was leading into January 6th, when Jared was in the Middle East with Steve Mnuchin raising money for their next ventures. Is he laughing in our face, trying to say something like this?
I think it's even worse than him laughing in our face, Steph. I think he just assumes that everyone is stupid and everyone isn't paying attention. And if you just tick through a number of things, the arc of his own career prior to being in the White House, and then what happened while he was in the White House, it just knocks the foundations out of this ridiculous explanation he gives for something that is nothing more than influence peddling and raw financial conflicts of interest. He famously got into Harvard after his father made a $2.5 million donation to Harvard. He came out of Harvard fully armed with consultant speak and buzzwords about business and being a can-do young man, et cetera, with, again, having very little to show for it other than his family's own wealth as this enormous cushion that got him launched into the world, which, by the way, is very similar to Donald Trump's own trajectory.
But Tim, here's the problem.
He buys the New York... Yeah.
Here's the problem. He is now a very rich man. Since he left the Trump White House, he did get $2 billion from MBS. So we might be stupid. We are paying attention, but we might actually be stupid. Because if these conflicts of interest that he clearly has are not illegal, if they're merely frowned upon, he's going to keep on trucking and laugh his way all the way to the bank, which he has done over the last 3 years.
As did Trump. And the problem with this is that we do not have, and even if we are fully aware of what's going on and it's deeply baked into our consciousness, that all they are doing is feathering their wallets based on White House access or the ability to shape national policy. The reason it goes on is because the executive branch in the U.S. government is not subject to a rigorous slate of conflict of interest rules as many other parts of the government are. By the way, the Supreme Court is exempt from a lot of these rules, and we've seen the problems that emerge there. That's one of the lessons we've learned from the Trump era in a number of ways, is that we don't have the structures around this office to rein in this kind of behavior. We've seen it. We just have to address it. Congress needs to address it, and the regulatory structure needs to address it. And until we do, they're going to keep doing this. I think what is the most aggravating about Jared Kushner is this pablum that comes out of his mouth to explain it. You know, in the Times story today, where he acknowledges, you know, he would not, that the business interests he's enjoying now came directly out of his experience in the White House. He's simply, but he's presenting it as if it's anodyne and it's just a fact of existence, when in fact it's a grotesque problem.
It's a grotesque problem that our current government has done almost nothing to solve for. During the Trump administration, when we saw all of this grotesque business, you and I talked about it all the time, right? The Biden administration and Democrats said, we need to get this man out of the White House because we need to change the rules so this never happens again. The rules were vague because there was never someone in office like a Donald Trump who would abuse power the way he did. Well, he lost, and then none of the rules were changed.
And on top of it, we don't call this for what it is. It's not an investment by the Saudis. It's a bribe. They're giving an untested person who has absolutely no track record as an investor a lush mountain of money that he's allowed to glean huge fees from. And the only reason he's getting that money is his proximity to a past president who may be a future president. And it's a hedge by foreign governments that they can influence policy through Jared Kushner.
Even if we call it what it is, guess what? Jared can just turn the news off. He can throw the newspaper out. There are no consequences, and there are no consequences for this behavior. He can. So we're the fools here.
Well, I mean, I think the entire Trump era, though, Steph, is a lesson in why we have to quickly and robustly change these rules. And that's not going to happen until you get a change of control in Congress and you get people that actually look at everything that's happened in the Trump administration and every single loophole that he and his family members have walked through, including Jared Kushner and his former Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin. Both of them are reaping business out of their proximity to the White House.